Hey, badass business owners, listen, we all want more profits and we want more sales. And it seems like everybody and their mother has an opinion on how to do it, including myself. But just because I have an opinion doesn't mean that I'm not open to hearing what other people have to say. So this way I can kind of grab some ideas, some thoughts, some aha moments, and maybe just a different way of looking at things. So recently I thought I would go ahead and listen to Mike Michalowicz's book called The Pumpkin Plan. Now, you might know who Mike is because he's the author of the book Profits First. But The Pumpkin Plan is a book that he wrote prior to that, and it was all about how do you increase your sales, therefore increase your profits. He had found himself in a place where he had lots of sales, but he was making no money. And he really was on this mission to figure out how to make more money. And he had a mentor that came into his life that introduced him into this concept that he discusses in The Pumpkin Plan. Now, one thing real quick, because a lot of people are on the fence about should I read books, not read books. Some people are voracious readers. I personally, I just can't sit still long enough to read, so I do everything on audio. So I tend to have a massive book collection on audio books. So I've had an Audible account forever, and there's probably over 300 books in there. Have I listened to all 300? No, I'm not going to lie to you. But I do try to knock out a book every quarter. Sometimes I go on a roll and I'll do a bunch of them back to back. I used to listen to tons of them until I discovered these darn podcasts, and then podcasts got in the way. But to me, I'm a big believer that as long as you get one good nugget out of the book, then it's worth the money. Because honestly, if somebody was to give you a great nugget for $20, you would take it. So you're foolish not to at least do audiobooks, because there's usually something that you're going to get out of that book. A lot of times I'll like maybe 3/4 of the book or half the book, and that's all I really need to like to be able to get my nugget. So I don't necessarily have to like the whole book. So for example, even in this Pumpkin Plan book, I really enjoyed the first half of the book. It started to get a little bit more repetitive towards the back half. So yeah, my interest kind of waned, but I believe I got the gist of what I needed to get out of the book. Now you're probably asking yourself, Tammy, what the heck does this have to do with sales and profits? Everything, because that's what this book is about. Because what Mike is really talking about is the fact that you need to cut customers. And that's like, whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean I need to cut customers? And I've talked about this in the past, whether you're increasing your pricing and you cut customers, or sometimes you just need to get rid of customers. And the premise is based on a pumpkin vine, that if somebody wanted to grow the biggest badass pumpkins they could possibly grow, what they have to do is they have to cut the weak pumpkins, because otherwise the entire vine is taking the nutrients, and you want those nutrients to get to that badass pumpkin. So you have to continuously cut the vine and let more of those nutrients get to it. And there's a lot more to it that he goes into the book. But what I thought I would do is I would kind of share some of the concepts that I personally pulled out of the book and put my own spin on them. Because like I said, I would say majority of his concepts I have been teaching for years. So it was neat to kind of have them reinforced. But I liked learning about them in a different mindset from a different person and his take on the entire thing. And obviously he's built some pretty successful businesses himself, and I am a huge fan because of Profit First, and he talks a little bit about that as well in the book. So if you're interested, I hope you will stick around, because there's some really good lessons that I think that all of us could get out of the book. So I'm just going to take like 4 of them and just share with you what my takeaway was with them. Now, one of the first ones was weeding out customers that produce the least amount of profits and take all of your time. Now, by the way, these are going to be in my words, not in his words, but the concept is his concept. Focus on your best clients. Blow them away with awesome customer service and fantastic results, and they will refer you to others. So let's kind of break that down for a second. And this is about the fact that one of the hard things that we have when we're struggling to grow our business is we can't get our arms around the fact that we need to let some people go. But the reality is you do need to let some people go, because there's some people that you are serving today that are responsible for the vast majority of your business. And they're really trouble-free for the most part. There might be a few problems, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people that we are trying to serve today that take up a lot of time and energy, And there's a lot of people that also are costing us a lot of profits. So part of what he's talking about is the fact that, the people that aren't really quite your ideal customer, you need to really let go of them because you're putting a lot of time and energy chasing people that may or may not use you in the future. Whereas your product or service really helps a certain person. And that we talk about your ideal customer all the time, that when you focus on your ideal customer, this is the person that absolutely wants to use you and is somebody that is more likely to refer you to other people for the same pain that they have. Not that the other ones wouldn't, but the odds go down dramatically. When you find yourself chasing all of your time down this rabbit hole for a few select customers, it's time to look at those customers and ask yourself, are they worth it? If they were turning around and referring you out to a lot of different people, that's one thing. Not necessarily saying don't cut them, but that's different than somebody that is just sucking up all your time, which kind of leads to point 2. So I'm going to kind of mix them together for a minute because he talks about the whole Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. And that is about the fact that what I mentioned earlier, where 80% of your sales are coming from really good, strong clients, but 20% of your sales are coming from these folks that are taking up 80% of your time. So it sounds weird that 80% of your customers are only taking up 20% of your time, but yet 20% of your customers are taking up 80% of your time. And that's because they're problem children, or whatever you've set up for them has a problem attached to it. The other way this comes into play is that bottom 20% of your customers may not necessarily take up all the time, but they just don't produce any of the profits because maybe it's priced wrong, maybe it's just the fact that you get yourself into a situation that just is not profitable with what you've agreed to do, whatever the case may be. So ultimately, when he's going through this whole thing, it ties into when he was saying, cut the vine, get rid of the slower sellers. That's what all of this is really coming into, is the fact that it's time to let go of people. Because when you let go of people, it frees up all that time. So now you can take on even more customers or clients. And this happens all the time because people want to grow their business, but they don't have the time to grow their business. There's only so much you can do in a day. And what they end up doing is they do take on more business, but then they hire people, which if you already hire people into a poor profit situation, your profit's only going to get worse. And if you walk away with nothing else from this episode, it is that. If your profits are already bad, hiring people will not make those profits better, because in order for you to be able to make payroll and to pay those people, it's going to come out of money that normally you were used to seeing because you were paying yourself that money. But now you're having to turn around and give that money to somebody else. So hiring people is not necessarily the answer to your sales and profit problem. The issue is you need to make your business really strong with what you have today and then grow the business. But the way you grow that business and the way you make it profitable today is to really dive in and find out which customers are you serving that you really shouldn't be chasing. Now, I'm going to use an example. I was coaching a landscaper, and this landscaper had built his business into 2 arms. One part of it did what's called monthlies, where they went to people's homes, cleaned up the yards, mowed the yards, did the basic landscaping around the house. The other part of his business was doing hardscapes, which is putting in the bricks in the homes and making these really nice backyards. Now, the monthlies could be profitable, but so were the hardscapes. And when you looked at it, you would have to do a heck of a lot of monthlies in order to make the same profit that they were making on their hardscapes. At some point, in order for him to grow, something was going to have to give. We got into a conversation about which one is taking up most of his time, and problem time, where he was having to run back to jobs and do different things, and a lot of it was going back to his monthlies. So he had to make the critical decision to stop doing monthlies. And when he stopped doing monthlies, all of a sudden he freed up all this time so he could grow the hardscapes where he was making more money. Now, hardscapes still come with problem children, and they still make mistakes and they still have to go back. But the good thing is, usually it's a once and done customer who then will show off their backyard to more people who will want to use your products and services. Where a problem monthly child is going to complain every single month. You do something at their place, and if they're a complainer, they're going to have issues on a recurring basis. And therefore, they're going to suck up your time long term more often. What he's found is it really helped take his business to the next level, and he actually tripled his business. Now, when things get tough or start to dry up, it's really easy to say, hey, if I went back to monthlies, and it's like, no. All you're going to do is reintroduce all the reasons why you stopped doing those monthlies. It's better to continue to fine tune the hardscape side of the business. So this way it opens up the opportunity to grow that business. And I think for most of you, you'd find that you have the same problem. For example, if you do online and in-person stuff, you might find the in-person stuff takes up all your time and energy, or it could be the online. For some people, doing the online piece of their business is very time consuming because you have to make it, you have to package it up, you have to take it to the post office. There's so many extra steps to make the same amount of money that a lot of times people end up getting out of the online piece of their business, because while it sounded good making all this extra money versus chasing the money within their community, it ended up taking way more time and energy for them to do it. So they cut that piece off, refocused their energies on their local business, and they were able to thrive and make more money. Ultimately, you need to look at your specific business and ask yourself, where are you wasting your time and energy, and how do you cut off that piece of the vine that you have? Now, another concept that he talked about in there, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, is when you have discovered who your top players are within your business, who are those top customers, you really need to understand the pain points that you're solving for them. What are some of the things that they have in common? Talk to them. Depending upon your business, you have a different opportunity to talk to them. Even if it's just in person and it's a one-time shot, talk to them about how you can make the process better. What would it take to make it a 5-star or a 10-star opportunity? Most people aren't going to want to share some of that stuff, so you may have to get creative with how you do it. But by you really understanding their pain point and what they really need, it helps you take your business to the next level, because you're going to continue to fine tune who that ideal customer are. Always remember, when you're trying to serve everyone, you are just going after so many different things and you're really not accomplishing anything. Whereas when you focus on that ideal customer, you actually can move the needle faster because you are hitting the exact people you want to hit. And those are the people that want to use your sales and products. And they are also the ones that are going to create the most profit for you. And they tend to be the less pain in the keister as long as you're constantly improving your business. Now, to kind of pull all this together, before you go chasing new clients, let's just say you pruned it out, and I know there's a better word for it. Let's just say you've gotten rid of all of those customers that are your pain in the keister customers, and now you're ready to go after more customers. Well, the other thing you need to be really careful of is you need to make sure that you have fine-tuned the profit side of the business before you go chasing more people. And here's why. We touched a little bit earlier, like I said, because if you take a business that has some serious holes in the profit and you start growing it, all you're going to do is multiply those holes in the profit. So you want to take those clients that are really good, that you've narrowed your business down to, get them to be as profitable as you can, and then go after more customers, because it's way easier for you to fix it before you take on double the business that you currently have today. So it's really important that you are constantly focused on, how do I make this more profitable? How do I clean up my broken processes? How do I make sure that I'm priced correctly before you go off chasing more customers? And I know I've talked about this on a few different episodes, especially recently, because I think a lot of times we get so focused on sales that we forget that this is a profit game. It's not about how much you do in sales. It's about how much of those sales you keep. So it's really important before you grow any business that you are always looking at, how do I make my profits better and more consistent? So this way, when I grow the business, the profits are there. So that when I hire someone, I have the profits to take care of the fact that I'm going to have to pay them more money, and ultimately my profits will still end up where I want them to be. So overall, when you're reading this book, you really will walk away with a few nuggets. I think that what's going to happen is you'll have some aha moments. So whether you read it or you listen to it, it is definitely worth the listen. Like I said, I really liked the interesting way that he presented it. I really liked the analogy to the pumpkin. It's fascinating to learn how they make those big pumpkins, because he does talk about that here and there. I will tell you that if you are sensitive to certain language, it may not be the book for you. As I think sometimes Mike forgets that there's women that might be listening to this podcast. Not that women are more sensitive. I can handle anything that anybody has to say, but just some of the choice of words that he uses isn't as inclusive as I would like them to be for everybody. But, hey, that's his style, that's him, and if you've listened to his stuff, it's no big deal. But I do want to warn people who might not appreciate that as much, just to let them know. What I'll do is I'll put a link in the show notes to the Pumpkin Plan if you're interested in checking it out. Like I said, if you love Profits First, I think if you haven't given Pumpkin Plan a opportunity or a listen, it's definitely worth it. I want to do his other one at some point, Clockwork, because that's supposed to be really good too. That talks more about processes. But I've had this one in my audiobook queue for a long time, and I just never did it. And something said, Tammy, go listen to it. And I'm glad I did, because it really does resonate around what we talk about here on the show quite a bit. And that's all about, focusing in on your ideal customer, making sure that you're not chasing the bad customers, that you're chasing the customers that really are your ideal customer, that will spend the money that you need them to spend, that you can serve, that they can walk away extremely happy, because this isn't about gouging them. This is really providing amazing service to them and products that they want. So they're extremely happy, and that makes you extremely happy because you're able to create the business that has the profitability that you want. And really what it is about getting rid of those customers that don't just bring you joy. They suck the joy out of your entire business, and they just end up taking up so much of your time and energy. And if nothing else, walking away with that one lesson of getting rid of people that suck the joy out of the business is going to bring more profits to your business, because your time, your energy gets freed up to work on the business, to create the profitability that you want, to dive into your P&L, to look at all the different things that you need to do. So, and I'm all about you becoming more profitable. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, because I guess I've been rambling for longer than I thought I have. But if you're interested, like I said, in the show notes will be a link. It is an affiliate link, but it doesn't cost you anything more. It's just a quick way for me to give you guys the link to the book. But Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, author of Profits First. It's definitely worth a listen to. I think that if you're really focused on taking your business to the next level, you'll get at least 2 good nuggets out of it, possibly 3, depending upon where your business is at. But it's worth it. So I'll give it a strong 4.5 out of 5, because like I said, it gets a little repetitive towards the end for me. But that's just me. You might be fine with that. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Remember, it's not about how much you sell, it's about how much you keep. And that's a huge lesson for all of us. But let's have some happy customers out there, because when we have happy, thriving customers, they're going to turn around and find us even more of those. And it's wonderful for our business. So with that, I am out of here. I'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye for now.